Hey guys, it's Quana back again with another Her Real Review recap. This is on tonight's episode of This Is Us Season 5, Episode 13, entitled Brotherly Love. Before we get started into tonight's episode, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button for all of my This Is Us updates. We won't see another episode until May 11th. In the meantime, I probably will drop another rating list and do some character, stuff. So you definitely want to check in on that. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. And if you like this video, we shall see, hit the like button and share. So I'm gonna do this video a little bit different, and you're gonna have to bear with me. This is gonna be more of a review / kind of like social commentary style video. I had a lot of emotions going into this episode, and some of you who probably visit my channel, you might not like this style or what I'm going to talk about today, and that is okay. Of course, we all knew that this episode was going to be Kevin and Randall coming together to reconcile after their big argument from last season, where Kevin basically tells Randall, "I wish you had never been adopted," and Randall tells Kevin that he is a terrible actor and that their father died not being proud of him. So there's a lot to unpack there, and they had brief moments of, I think, momentary attempts at some sort of reconciliation throughout. They're still brothers. They still are family. And so they still have shown up for each other in all of the various iterations of this season, but things have been tense. And going into this episode, I was excited about it because I was like, okay, Tuesday, This Is Us. And then I remembered the topic, and just with everything going on right now, from the George Floyd, Derek Chauvin trial of the killing of George Floyd, and Devontae Wright, and just numerous other things. The lieutenant from Virginia, the video was released of him. It was just, and even them, which I'm planning on doing a video essay about that series, because I ended up watching it even though I said I wasn't, and I have lots of thoughts about that. But I just felt very on edge even going into this episode. I feel like it should have come with a warning. Maybe it did. I always missed the first 3 episodes, not 3 episodes, well, right, I can't speak today. I always miss the first 3 minutes because I watch on the streaming app and it takes a little while. And so unless I sit down to connect, and even when I do, from switching over from one show to the next, it takes a while to connect. And I always end up missing the first couple of minutes of the episode. But yeah, this was not. So basically, Kevin travels to see Randall, and they're going to reconcile. Beth's going to take the girls out and go skating with them and do some things with them so that Kevin and Randall can have the home to themselves, and they get into it. We get 2 flashbacks of the boys together growing up, one when they're 5, and they get to go to Mr. Rogers' set, which I adore Mr. Rogers. I'm a big Mr. Rogers fan. My kids grew up watching Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. I grew up watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And so I was very pleased to see that they brought in that connection, and that is something that flows throughout the episode. Basically, what happens in that flashback is they go to the set for Mr. Rogers, and one of the PAs doesn't acknowledge Randall as being with Jack, because who expects this white man to have this little black boy with him? And so Jack overcompensates for the awkwardness of that moment by kind of singling Randall out and making him special for the day. And of course, Kevin, as a kid, he doesn't understand. And so I think definitely there is a conversation that needs to be had from the parental side. Only Rebecca can have that, about the dangers of singling one child out for special treatment because they are treated different by the world, instead of just explaining that to them, correcting the information, and not passing off or being dismissive about it because you don't want to cause a scene, but correcting those mistakes when they happen in the moment And then explaining to your children, especially if you are having a transracial family, that, you know, what's going on, being clear in communication. And this, the 80s, the 90s, they didn't know that, but I think hopefully more families are starting to realize that that's what needs to be done. I know for my own family, we don't have a transracial family, but we have a family that is not exactly nuclear. And you sometimes just be honest with kids and just tell them, kids hear a lot. They know a lot more than we think that they know. And it's better to just be truthful with them in a language and understanding that they can give. In the young adult age bracket, Randall goes to visit Kevin in California. He's there with like the Model UN, and Kevin wants him to cut loose and have brother time, but he falls into a lot of the stereotypical tropes where he wants Randall to, you know, sing rap songs with him and get drunk with him and go to the club with him. And he starts out the day by calling him Fresh Prince because he's a black dude coming to California. Like there's not a whole slew of black people living in California. And they get into a big fight and they get kicked out of a cab, and they again have a moment where race comes up and they don't address it. And so we see all these moments where these things weren't addressed in their life, and it brings us to this moment. So let me talk to you a little bit about how I digested this episode with a big old knot in my stomach, hoping that the show was going to get it right, knowing, and I made the mistake of like reading the live tweets and then going to my Facebook group that I'm a part of and watching and reading the reactions. And I should never do that because the world that we live in is so divisive and so divided. And I feel like the fandom makes the show more divisive than what it really is, right? You have a black man who was adopted by a white family, ergo, in a country that has issues with race, he's going to have issues with race. But when those issues with race are not discussed by that family, he's going to have problems beyond what the normal adoptee would have, because not only is he dealing with problems from a racial perspective, just a black man walking the earth, walking in America, but his viewpoint and his entry into the mechanisms with which most black people are passed down knowledge on how to exist, he doesn't have that. He's had to figure all those things out, find people to educate him and teach him the way. And that's going to be a whole host of issues on it to itself. And so it doesn't negate the very quote unquote normal sibling rivalry and issues that just come with being raised in a family or being raised in a blended family, but now being raised in a blended family where races and the way that we walk through the earth is different, causes issues. And I guess my issue that I have is, one, I don't like that they had this conversation solo. I think this would have been the perfect time for Randall to have this conversation with his therapist via Zoom, and the therapist, and just don't send them outside. And, you know, yeah, that was a moment of levity, having the old lady there and, you know, saying, hey, Manny, what are you doing here? You need to get out of that Sylvester Stallone stuff and stick with being in comedy, you know. Okay, that was cute. But have the PhD doctor sit there and help these two men navigate these conversations, because none of the conversations were fully fleshed out. From the perspective of someone who grew up in a blended family and someone who's female, it's amazing to me that people in the fandom who are women don't understand that if you were a woman who was raised with a brother, and I wasn't raised with a brother, I have brothers, but I wasn't raised with them, you are aware that oftentimes girls get treated differently than boys, and the expectations that are put on women are different. And so somehow, we know what it is, but it gets lost in the sauce that the experiences of this black boy being raised in this family would be different from this white boy raised in this family. And a lot of the conversations, the onus is on one or the other, instead of that this is a very complex system of things going on that have caused this rift between these two brothers especially. And especially because I think from what we have seen of Kate as the sister, she was often on the outside of their interpersonal relationship, and also more sensitive toward Randall, and at least more willing to listen and not be as blinded to her faults in that way. And so it's made it easier for them to maintain relationship than it is for Kevin and Randall. Kevin messed up by starting, the apologies off with a bunch of if statements. It's the first thing, the first no. If you've ever been in a conversation with someone where you're expressing to them what they've done that has hurt your feelings or that has wronged you or been unjust in some way, and for them to not acknowledge it, it's gaslighting. It's making you feel as though your feelings are invalid. What has happened is invalid. Did it really even happen the way that your brain is processing it that it happened? And it's like, surely if it did, why is this person giving me if statements? Because it's evident that you did hurt me. I'm hurt, therefore you did hurt me. Don't say if, say apologize for hurting me. Do you know why you hurt me? Ask me, how did I hurt you? Something. So Kevin started with a bunch of if statements, completely not acknowledging. And the problem that I had with one is that is typical narcissistic ways that Kevin experiences. And he's on this arc, he's on this journey. We're supposed to believe that he's come to this arc place where he had that big epiphany moment like 4 episodes ago, before Madison had the babies. And yet we're seeing him right back here with these blinders on. The other issue that I have is the world in which we live in right now is a very scary place for Black people, and I'm sure even more so for Black men, even though, we see with like Breonna Taylor and Sandra Bland and Tatiana and all, Jefferson and everyone else, that like it doesn't matter what your gender is, but especially for Black men and Black moms. It's really scary for Black moms who have Black sons. And I can't help but to wonder, especially in this world that we're living in now, where you can't hide from it. Rebecca and Jack and the family were able to hide from it and deny it when it wasn't staring them in the face. It wasn't on the news every night. It was so far away and removed from their family. But it's like, maybe their wealth continues to keep them blinded to that, but it's like, do you not worry about your brother when he leaves the house? Because I worry about my husband when he leaves the house, and I'm probably going to worry about my sons when they leave the house. And so it's even those nuances of not realizing the gravity of which the world that Randall lives in, and the fact that that you're aware now, so you've gone this long with being blind to it, what that must have been like being alone in that fear without being able to have family to rest in that moment. Then there's Randall. I am not going to absolve Randall 100%. I'm going to absolve him about 70%, because people have to stop making it the responsibility of the harmed individual to educate the person who has wronged them. And Randall has explained to Kevin what it was. He wasn't heard, but they've had numerous conversations. The conversation that they had when their mother got lost, the conversation that they had on the front lawn, the conversation that they had after the fight, where they broke out into the fight and it was in the middle of the street and Randall almost got arrested, and then they had to say, no, this is my brother. Like, multiple times he's tried to shine a light when he's told him growing up, don't call me Carlton, or different things. I have to clean my glasses. So Randall has on numerous occasions explained to Kevin, it is not Randall's fault that Kevin has been with blinders on, with ears plugged up, right? The thing that I'm going to blame Randall for is that what he said about their dad was extremely damaging, and it went for the jugular, and that was beyond something that's below the belt, way below the belt. You don't ever say to someone that their dead parent would be disappointed in them, right? You could say their behavior, he would be disappointed in their behavior, in your alcoholism, whatever, but in themselves, no, you don't say that. So this is why I think that the way they framed the show was wrong, because they should have framed the show, there should have been like a doctor with them in the room, help facilitate this conversation. I know that that's not necessarily how everyone has these conversations in real time and in real life, but I really genuinely feel like that would have made the conversation better, because there was so much that was just kind of left unsaid. And for the sake of dramatics, it was dragged out, and they did not address the issues until the last 7.5 minutes of the show. And so I don't think this is settled. I don't think that this is airing everything out. It just feels very like a very flat conversation. And at the end of it, what makes Kevin realize that what he's saying about his brother needing to be grateful for their parents, and he's not grateful. But I mean, who walks around you're grateful for your parents? It's Mother's Day, you say thank you. You can say, if someone asks you, hey, I had great parents, you would say, I have great parents. But should he be, every single word out of his mouth should be, Mom and Dad were just the best parents ever? You and Kate don't walk through life like that. You all have had your issues. Kate hated Rebecca at times. So yeah, you didn't dog Kate out for the way she was disrespecting Rebecca. So it's you don't get to do that with Randall, because he's saying, yeah, Mom and Dad are great, except for the fact that Mom lied to me for an additional 20 years of my life, when she knew where my father was and how to get in touch with him and could have reconciled with him sooner. Yeah, that, so it wasn't enough for me. It was good. It was touching. I cried. The last scene, yes, with Randall, William, and Laurel. Oh my gosh. The idea of what could have been if they had been able to afford medical care, if Laurel had been able to go to the hospital, if that hospital had taken care of her well, then she wouldn't have returned back to drug use, because she had been clean, and perhaps she would have gotten her life back on track. And William, who had also gotten off of drug use, wouldn't have fallen back into drug use, and perhaps they would have stayed together, and they would have raised this creative, beautiful young boy, and they would have maybe not have had as good of a life in terms of wealth, but they would have been very full. All of the what ifs, what ifs, shoulda, coulda, wouldas, but Randall has the family that he has. And for us to have seen Kevin go through therapy, for his, addiction, and then to have this moment just rest in the hands of these two men, and this is going to fix everything between them. I don't know. I don't like it. It doesn't sit right with me. No, nothing can ever be perfectly right with a family, but it just bothered me. It just bothered me so much. And I don't know if I'm the only one, if I'm really weird, that I'm thinking that it just felt empty in a lot of ways. Even at the end, the apologies, it felt like a start, which is good. I don't think we have to do everything and fix everything in one episode, but I just think it could have been better and more fruitful if it had been written another way. But this episode had me triggered. People in the comments were just like me, saying, oh my gosh, they're gonna get locked out the house, and then they're gonna try to break into the house, and that's where your mind goes right now with everything that's going on. I mean, I just was I'm not ready for that. If they have the police roll up on them, I am going to turn the TV off and be beside myself. Thankfully, they did not go that route, because it would have been a whole nother video. But yeah, so that's my thoughts and opinions and kind of recap / review about this episode. It won't go down as one of my favorites, although, like I said, if I could just bottle that last sequence at the end with William and Laurel, that was so beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Next time we get a new episode, it looks as though we're getting a Beth flashback to her dancing days and perhaps trying to save her business. There was a clip with Randall telling Deja to kind of like keep an eye out on her, and Deja is sounding like she's saying to him Beth doesn't need him to wear a cape for her, like to be her hero. I am praying that they don't do anything silly. I didn't see Mama C this episode. And my Felicia Rashad, I'm gonna need her to be a fixture on all of season 6. Okay, final season 6. I need to see Felicia Rashad on a consistent basis. I still need a Miguel episode of Miguel and Rebecca, how they got together for real, not just Facebook and episode. And so it's a lot. For only 3 episodes left, we have a lot that we haven't gotten this season. I mean, obviously, COVID, but yeah, just a lot of emotions. I don't know, guys. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought. I feel kind of hollow from this episode, and I usually walk away from this feeling a bit more full. I mean, obviously last season finale, kind of could be with the same feeling, but I feel very weird. And maybe it's with everything going on. I don't know. We need some Black Boy joy. We need some Randall and Beth laughing and cutting up for next time we see them. So I can be put in a happier Zen mode. But those are my thoughts about tonight's episode. Please, please, please let me know down below in the comments what you thought. Did you agree with anything I said? Did you disagree? And tell me why. I mean, I'm great. I love the dialogue. And I'm trying to be patient with the not having episodes, back to back to back. We got 2 in a row, and now we're on another hiatus, but I get it. Between Mandy having the baby and between COVID, I understand everything gets put on hold and all the productions. But yeah, those are my thoughts for This Is Us. Season 5, episode 13, Brotherly Love. You guys go out and express some brotherly love, and I will see you next time. Toodles.